find it interesting what I'm seeing with that commodification, especially with celebrities these days, because a lot of the celebrity pregnancy photos that I see, yes, certainly there's a lot that's skimpy, but there's a lot that's kind of ethereal, like Virgin Mary, got some sort of halo around that, you're almost in this divine state, which, it's just interesting how that builds into the commodification of women as well. So, I mean, like in some ways, I feel that it's trying to show motherhood as this sacred divinity experience, but it's at the cost of saying that motherhood is going back to the ties to history, like a woman's purpose, which is such a dangerous narrative that women have been fed for so long. So I find it fascinating that, in the 70s, that it was not groovy to be a mom, and that I feel like that was part of the fuel in women's lib at the time.
Absolutely. And I think that the fetishization of motherhood is actually part of a cultural backlash against the women's liberation movement. Because if you absolutely valorize motherhood and make it, as you say, this divine experience, which is not something that any mothers will tell you is true, it's a way of kind of pushing women away from the agency that we have obtained through the work of our ancestors. If you kind of say, well, if you don't have children, either by choice or by chance, somehow you're missing out on this, the most meaningful thing you could do, the most culturally acceptable thing you can do. It's really setting that up against the idea of the career woman, which is another really interesting trope, because where are the career men? I don't know any career women. I know women with jobs. It's not like having a career or a job is a choice for most women now. When I was growing up again in the 70s, some mums worked and some didn't, and some mums wanted to work and their husbands didn't want them to. And some women, working class women have always worked and brought up their kids at the same time, but this is a sort of a middle class phenomenon. But now, most middle class families that I know, apart from extremely wealthy ones, rely on the income of both parents. It is no longer like an optional. My grandmother used to call the money that she brought in from a part-time job that she had pin money, which comes from Victorian times. And it's literally money to buy your pins so that because they were kind of a new expensive thing, so you could carry on with your dressmaking at home. It was just a bit of extra money for special things around the house. It wasn't essential to the household economy in the way that it is now. So to call women career women implies there's a choice, and that they made the choice to do that instead of motherhood because they are inherently unfeminine. There is a subtext in that statement, career woman, which basically says, bitch, hard as nails, unempathic, probably not motherhood material, bit of a ball breaker. It's like, what's going on there?
Deviant from the patriarchal standard. Yeah.
So where's the middle ground in all this? What is the truth is basically the question.
That's such a good question. I don't think we found the middle ground yet. I think as human beings, there are more than enough of us on the planet. So, for population stabilization, the fastest way to stabilize a population, reduce its birth rate, is to educate the women, is schools for girls. It is the fastest way to reduce the birth rate, is to make sure that the females have as much access to education as the men. And then the birth rate starts to come down. So in a way, what I would like to see is these kind of hysterical articles that you read about population shrinkage and how all these old people, and there aren't going to be enough young people to look after them, and we need to encourage people to have more children. I would like to, that's pronatalism talking again. It's like, we have to grow. The only solution is to grow more people, more taxpayers. We need to get a lot more creative, because actually having a shrinking population is something many, many developed countries need to look at and manage. because we need a more sustainable population. And also childless women by choice or not by choice are really powerful agents of change in the culture, because we are not taken up with the 20 to 30 year task of child rearing. So we can use our education and our talents and our desires to do different things in the culture. Single childless women in particular have been shown over and over again to be the biggest supporters of political campaigns, the biggest volunteers to charities and to various sort of volunteer organizations. We are that village that helps to raise all those children in many ways. We are those taxpayers that aren't using money for the schools, for the hospitals, for our kids. We are not deviant women not running. We're actually integral to the civic fabric of society. And I personally don't think, when I think of all of the women in the world not bringing up children, but who have those empathic mothers' hearts, there are so many things in this world that need that love, need that care, need that attention. My middle ground for me would be a place where all of us are valued as individuals, as humans, as contributors, whether we have children or not. And that includes men, because there are almost as many childless men as there are childless women, if we do a meta-analysis of the stats. But for example,